Well, you do have a couple women here who are pro-life, and I suspect, given your political leanings, you're pro-choice. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be interested to see where the table is on that.
Yeah, why don't we see like who's pro-choice, who's pro-life?
Pro-life.
Well, here, start with you. We'll go around the table.
Pro-life.
Pro-choice.
Very pro-life.
Pro-choice.
Pro-life.
Pro-life. Pro-life. I already said it.
Anti-abortion every day.
Okay, so we have, is it 2 versus what, 6, 7?
Abortion is the greatest human rights and justice of our time. Say that again.
Oh, she's
Wait, I
wearing the
didn't-
shirt. I didn't
Abortion
realize
is
that.
the greatest human rights and justice of our time.
All right, there you have it.
Nice. Just a fact. Just a fact.
Wait, so before I have like maybe before me and Jake weigh in, as somebody who's pro-choice, do you think? I often hear the term "no uterus, no opinion." Do you concur? Do you agree with that?
Not 100%.
Okay.
Because it's like, I feel like a father should have rights. Do you know what I mean? And should have
Sure.
a say.
Mhm.
I feel like ultimately, because it's a
Wait,
woman
you-
and her body, she should have the majority.
Okay.
1 septillion 111
Hold on.
sextillion 111 quintillion
Hold that thought.
111 quadrillion 111 trillion 111 billion 111 million 111,111 donated $100.
I hope it doesn't get.
My helicopter goes like this.
Oh my God.
Thank you, 1 trillion billion. Thank you. Wait, you said that you think fathers should have rights, but so if we're talking about abortion, so are you arguing that men should be able to compel women to get abortions? It's kind
I
of
think
based.
they
I'm
should.
just kidding.
No, I
that's
think
a
they
good
should have a say. You know what I mean? Like,
What do you
I
mean?
think,
How would a man
like
have a say?
in the realm of like pro-life or pro-choice,
okay, if we're
like,
talking-
I
you
feel like they
said-
should have an opinion. I mean,
Oh,
not
well, that's-
an
okay.
overpowering opinion, not an opinion that overshadows.
But you
women's
specifically,
opinions,
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you specifically said men should have rights. Fathers should have rights.
Yeah, I feel like
Related-
yeah, in terms of like
To
the
a
core and child support and just all of that
Okay.
nature, women usually do have like a benefit over that.
But since we're specifically talking about abortion, do you think men should be able to compel women to have abortions?
Compel them to?
Like, let's say she wants to keep the kid. He doesn't want to keep the kid. Should he be able to compel her to get an abortion?
No.
Oh, okay. Because you said like father's rights.
Yeah,
in the
if
context
she
of
wanted
abortion,
to get an abortion,
we
but
could
the
have a
father wanted to
conversation.
keep the child, then like I say like
okay, so
he should be allowed.
There's a
to-
concept called legal paternal surrender, where after the child's born, or even before the child's born, the father can say, well, obviously he can't have a say in terms of compelling her to have the child, but he could say, well, I don't want any parental rights, and I don't want any financial responsibility or parental responsibility, and that's it's a men's rights position, legal paternal surrender. So you're in favor of that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not. I mean, it's semi-related to the abortion issue, but it's not really central to it. Although I would certainly agree with you that, for example, in any state where abortion is legal, certainly there should be a corresponding legal paternal surrender where a man could say, well, if a woman has a right to murder the child, I ought to at least be able to do away with my parental responsibilities and obligations, so that when it comes to child support or any sort of parental responsibility, I think that's a fair position.
Is there like a certain cutoff? I know that abortion, there's like isn't there a time frame of when you can and can't get one? Do you support late term abortions? Is that what it's called when it's later
Yeah,
on?
late term.
Would you like support that or be an advocate for a late term abortion?
I mean, it's not my body. So yeah,
if
I mean, pretty
you had
much
to
it's
make-
not my choice to make. It's someone else's, and I don't think I should take that from someone.
Oh no.
I think. Oh yeah, that's. He was dropping Okay, hold on. I'm going to look into that. Continue on with the conversation, guys.
If you had to say from your standpoint, though, if you had to make a cutoff of when you think is a reasonable time where it's no longer ethical to have an abortion, what would that cutoff be?
My whole stance is that I don't think it's my choice to make that for other people.
So if
I
a
think
woman
it's
was
up to
in
someone else.
if a woman was in labor and she said, I want to kill this baby, you'd be okay.
No.
Okay, so then what's the cutoff?
Then, like labor is
A
like
day
in
before?
process of giving birth.
What about a
then
day
that's
a day
like-
before?
Yeah.
Yes.
You think that it's fine? Have you ever seen what it looks like,
Yeah.
an abortion taking place?
Yeah.
You have seen that? What does it look like?
There's like different types of abortion. You can take the pill.
You think you can take a bill? No. In terms of a late-term abortion, like the day before, let's say, do you know what that would look
I've
like?
seen what like a full-term like fetus looks like.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the baby a day before
one, Mike.
the woman goes into labor and then while the woman's in labor? What's the difference between those children?
Like,
Why does one get the right to life and the other one doesn't?
I just think it's prioritize until the child is born. I think you should prioritize the
You said in labor, though.
person bearing the child first. Their mental health, their body, everything.
But are you agreeing that there's another person involved?
Potentially there could be. I don't
Potentially,
know.
or is there? Because if someone were to get killed, you wouldn't say potentially someone got killed. You'd be like, someone got killed. That's crazy.
Okay, then no.
So there is another person involved.
No.
So just to make both of your stances clear, you both don't think that, like, when do you think that the unborn becomes a person?
I
takes
would
us
disagree with that. I am not as extreme in that way. I'm pro-choice, but I would say I used to be much more aloof with it. Like, anybody should be able to get an abortion, not at any time, but like in a reasonable amount of time, which I don't know exactly what that would be. And the more I listen to podcasts like this and other things that talk about this, I would say I completely agree that there needs to be like a serious cutback, and like you probably know the statistics of how much it happens. It's like crazy. It's probably like really out of control. And
what happens?
How much abortion happens. Like, I think that there's probably a lot of people using it as, a backup plan.
Birth control.
Exactly. And I don't agree with that. I do think that there's probably a lot of benefit to cutting it back.
If you had to say, when do you think that a human life becomes a human life?
That's tough. I would say it's pretty early for me. Like, I think, when it's just the first little cells that usually everyone talks about, like, I would say, yeah, that's reasonable. If you just found out you were pregnant.
What if I were to tell you that it's an unassailable scientific fact that a human life becomes a human life at the moment of conception?
That would be a claim that it's like hard for me to fully believe that. But if you like
Propaganda's real.
If you could fully convince me of that, then yeah, I would say that
90% of biologists actually agree that life begins at conception. So if we're deciding when someone lives or dies, I think we have to have a definitive point. We can't just arbitrarily pick a point in pregnancy to decide whether someone has the right to life or not. And since biology does say fertilization is the start of life, it seems to me that that's the only like viable time we can say that that's when life begins. And therefore we must protect all life from the moment of conception all the way up until birth and afterwards too.
Seems like you're very open-minded about it, which is good. And I think that if you follow this path of logic, you'll eventually find yourselves with your back up against the wall, where you realize that it's not even scientifically contested with anybody who's worth their salt in the field of biology to say that human life doesn't begin at the moment of conception. So, you find yourself in a position, and I've done this as well. I used to be pro-life. I used to be pro-choice. Myself. Right. And eventually, you're just confronted with the facts, and you can't really.
I don't know if this was asked. One question for you: do you have a sense of, like, should a woman be able to get an abortion at any point throughout the pregnancy, or do you have a cutoff?
I feel like that's her choice. I feel like it's not for me to decide for someone else.
So for example, like, would you be okay with women being able to get abortions a day before they would otherwise give birth?
Like I said, it's not my choice. It's for somebody
No,
else.
but-
I feel like it's excessive to do it at that point, but at the end of the day, I don't.
Why is it excessive? What's wrong with an abortion right before birth, or whether it's right after conception? What's the fundamental difference?
As something's developing, like, it feels like it's like, oh, that's right there at the cutoff. Do you know what I mean?
That's
So that
interesting,
feels like, there's a reasonable time in which, but late-term abortions don't happen that frequent.
Right,
Well,
but
what's
just
the difference
just in terms of having an intellectual conversation about it, would you be okay with a woman getting an abortion a day before she would otherwise have
That's
a
her
healthy?
body. That is her body. That is her choice. It is not my choice for what someone should do or shouldn't. Like,
Would
what
you be
I would
willing-
do is I wouldn't have an abortion at all. But that's me.
Why wouldn't you have an abortion?
Because I feel like for me, like what aligns with me, I wouldn't want to do that. But it's not my choice to make that for someone else.
When you say it doesn't align for you, is it like a moral thing for you that you wouldn't have an abortion because you
the
think it
whole
kills a
debate is
person?
moral.
Or,
The whole thing is morality.
but for you, you said that you wouldn't have one. Is it a moral thing for you?
yes, the whole topic is moral. So,
So
yes,
do you think
it's
that
moral on every
if I were to
sense.
say I'm for child abuse, but you guys aren't, therefore I can abuse my child because I personally am not like against child abuse, or would you step in and say, excuse me, you can't abuse your child, right? Like moral issues are our problems. It's your problem too. You know, you can't just say I'm personally pro-life, but you can do whatever you want. You see
Well,
what
there
I
are
mean?
different things that's an extreme.
I don't think so. I mean, killing a child could in some ways seem worse than just abusing your child, but the point is, if it's a moral issue,
Oh,
Wiley50 donated $100. Roughly
Thank you, Wiley.
63.5 million children murdered since Roe v. Wade was enacted. Almost as many as the estimated 70 million murdered by their own government under communist Russia. Pick better beliefs. Like YHWH.
thank you, Wiley. Did you want to continue on with your thread?
yeah, I just want to understand in the sense of morality, since you agree it's a moral issue, right? Like we can agree on that at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, most things are a moral issue.
Right. And so if let's talk about another moral issue where you would agree that there should be some kind of objective reality, right? Like, do you agree child abuse is wrong?
Yes.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Because
Like,
it
it's-
harms children, right?
Yes.
We can agree on that. And we
Yeah,
can
but
agree on
it's-
many other moral issues where we can both say, oh, that's wrong. That's hurting somebody else, right?
But this is like a more tricky topic. Like, it's
Why is it-
not
why
as
is it more
black
tricky
and
for
white
you?
as like hitting a child or something like that. This is something that there are responsibilities to bear once this happens. And there are a lot of children in foster care, and there's a lot of people who are and I'm not saying this is you, right? Like, you put a lot of effort into fixing the
Doc
issues that you believe in.
Venabilis
So this
donated
is-
$100. Greater than 90% of biologists agree that life begins at conception. Also, an important principle of bioethics, when making decisions regarding life or death, always err on the side of life.
Hey, Doc Vanadlis, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Continue with your point. Go ahead.
But it becomes more tricky when it's like most of the people that are pro-life are just like, oh, just don't do anything or provide resources for people in tricky positions. Do you know what I mean? Like, domestic violence is a huge issue, and most of it isn't even, put on to numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue, honestly, that pro-life people generally do care more about, like, the entire life versus just the fetus. Because you hear that a lot, oh, pro-life people only care about the fetus. That's not true. Pregnancy resource centers actually are, like, 4-to-1 to Planned Parenthoods. And if you call up a Planned Parenthood and ask them, hey, I'm having a baby, do you have any, like, resources like diapers and, like, can I have a place to stay? They're going to be like, what are you talking about? All we have is the abortion pill. Like, that's all we have for you. Whereas pro-life people are actually giving resources to women to be able to say, like, you can do this. You're strong enough to be a mother. So I would argue that that's really not the case.
And they'd also adopt the kid as well.
Yeah.
They would make you take it to term, and then the adoption list in America is much bigger than the amount of abortions that take place. As well.
I want to try to get a little bit more precise on the question that I asked you before. So I asked you, would you be okay with a woman getting an abortion a day before she would otherwise go through with a healthy pregnancy? Her life is in at risk. The baby's health is fine. You said you'd be okay with that, correct?
I mean, I feel like it's not for me to put my opinion on what someone else should judge. That's for someone else to weigh out, not me. That is not my responsibility.
Here, then I'll make it a two-pronged question. For you, let's say you've decided a day before you were otherwise going to give birth, you decided you wanted to get an abortion. Would you?
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, so then, and you would not legislate or let me think about this. You would not put forth legislation to prevent women from getting an abortion a day before they would otherwise give birth. No. Would you at least have some sort of moral objection or judgment to them doing that? Perhaps you wouldn't want to
like I said,
prevent
I feel like
it
it's
legally,
a little
but
bit excessive. Like I feel like it's
What do you mean?
oh, you're waiting up until the last point. You know what I mean?
do you find it morally objectionable?
I mean, I guess to a degree.
Okay. What about an hour before a woman were to otherwise give birth? 1 hour. She's in the hospital, right? But she's in the hospital. Ooh, the pain's really bad. Let's just do an abortion. Not that I don't think that might not be the pretext for why she would get an abortion, but I suppose the pain would still persist anyways. But let's say an hour before she was otherwise going to give birth, she wanted to get
I feel
an
like
abortion.
it's not for me to say. Like it's
Okay.
not my decision to make. Like I feel like that's for each individual person to assess their situation.
But didn't you
and
agree it was a
make their
moral
own.
issue though? You agreed
Yeah.
it was a moral issue where if you
I mean,
agree it's killing a person, that's why you wouldn't do it. Why
No,
would you?
I didn't
why
agree
would
that
you?
it was killing a person. I'm saying for me, it would feel immoral for me to do
Well,
it.
why is it immoral to you?
Because if it wasn't under extreme circumstances for me, then I have the financial resources that I'm okay with a child. Like I have
But you agree
everything.
it's a child, so the moral issue for you is that it kills your child. Is that correct?
Just no.
No.
Would-
So then what's wrong with abortion? If it doesn't kill a person, then abortion's totally fine, right? You would want more abortions in some ways.
My personal opinion on what I would do for my body is still, I don't think I should push that on anyone else. It's the same thing for like a religious belief or anything else like that. I have
If
my
there
opinion.
was, let me ask you a question. If there was a pro-life lobby trying to legislate that a woman could not get an abortion a day before she would otherwise give birth, would you be against that? Like if you had, or there was a something on the ballot, you could vote. Can women get an abortion a day before they would otherwise give birth?
I feel like a day is excessive, and if I had to have an opinion, it would probably lean more towards I wouldn't want that to happen because it is so last minute.
What about a second? she's a second away from
This is still excessive. Like, is this realistic? No.
But okay, she's
not realistic.
she's 1 second away from giving birth. Should she be able to have an abortion?
Like,
You
it's
might
a
not
ridiculous
personally-
question. Like
But-
1
It's
second.
a hypothetical.
that
Just
really happens
engage
in
with the
real life.
hypothetical. Do you think it's right or wrong? Like, do you think that it's morally right or wrong to do that?
I feel like for me personally, and I can only answer for myself, it would be wrong for me, but
Why?
I cannot answer for other people.
Why is it wrong?
Because I feel like I can bear the responsibility of a child. If it were to happen, I
Here,
feel like
let me-
I have the right resources. I can't make that decision for someone
Wait,
else.
here, let me give you a hypothetical. So okay, the woman's in the hospital. She's an hour away from otherwise giving birth. At 59 minutes before giving birth, she realizes that her entire life savings have been wiped out. She can no longer financially, she's realized, oh no, my finances have been totally wiped away. On this sole basis, now, before I was able to financially provide, now I can't. She wants to now get an abortion because just financially she's not in a good position. Do you think that is sufficient reason to get an abortion?
Like, I don't know how many times I have to say it. Like, it's not my opinion to have. It's that simple. It's not for me to have an opinion
Okay.
on someone else.
Can
Like,
I jump in? I understand your point that you're not trying to like make your opinion influence someone else's decision, and it's kind of like, oh, each individual person should just do what they want. But then what would be the point in having a government that takes care of people if we just say, oh, do whatever you want at the risk of whoever? Like, it doesn't make sense.
it's not at the risk of whoever.
But
This is a
it's at the
contained
risk
issue.
at-
It's the same thing as if you were to push a religion on every single person. That it doesn't. There are certain things that don't work, and they aren't so black and white. And this
But
is
there
one
are
of the
certain-
things that sit in a very gray area.
But there are certain rights that everyone has that is black and white, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Why is it
Yeah.
not black and white for you?
Because it is an issue of morality.
But there's other moral
Morality
issues that
is
are
not black and
And
white.
morality
It's
is
not.
It's
So-
what's
so
good and
Rick,
what's
wait,
evil.
hold on.
we just decided.
Oh, yo, Rick, are you Hunter on Streamlabs? Is that you, Rick? Are you Hunter? Send another super so I can see it. Here, last back and forth, and we're going to switch gears a bit if you guys want to just wrap up on the point.
I just wanted to also ask, do you know what the point of viability is? Like, what's the difference between a child at 20 weeks versus like right before birth?
Like probably like pain.
But
How much it can feel pain, like, I don't know, biological.
Because most places in the United States, you can have an abortion all the way up to the point of viability, and babies are being born in the same hospitals where they're being aborted. Do you think that that's a moral issue where, like, these children, one child gets the right to life, they get to have, you know, the life that you have right now because their mother made a decision, versus a child in a different room is literally being killed, pulled apart limb from limb at that point in an abortion, and they don't have that right to live? Why is it someone else's decision whether someone lives or dies?
But it's also consciousness.
And don't you think
right?
that's black
like
and white?
Once you become unconscious, right? Like if you're in a coma, then you no longer have the ability to assess decisions for yourself. It's the same thing. Someone that would be a caretaker to you would make that decision if you should live or die or when it happens. It's the same situation. You're not conscious.
So consciousness decides
child's not-
whether you have
Yes.
like value?
Yes.
Well,
and
what
it has
about
for a long
when
time.
you're asleep? Can you just kill me if I'm asleep? Just because I would never
That's
know
not the
that you
same
killed
level
me.
of consciousness.
I don't think there's a
That's-
gray area. It's life or like in death. I think, I mean, if even the moment of contraception, it's a living being. It's life. There is no gray area.
They're
There shouldn't
conscious.
be a gray area.
Everything-
Conscious or not, there should be no gray area.
It's completely, that's so linear, because at the same time you could be like murder is bad, but if you were stuck somewhere
There
in a
is no but.
situation,
Murder is
life or
bad. No
death,
but.
right?
Do you
and
think
you were to
preborn
kill
babies
someone
aren't
who was
innocent,
trying
though?
to kill you, that would be different than you murdering
Sure, but
someone else.
That's not murder.
A preborn
Yeah,
baby is
self-defense
innocent,
isn't murder.
Self-defense is not murder. This is death.
It's an
This is-
opinion.
Well, okay, so
because
once
there
the
are some
baby-
people that
once
would
the baby
consider
is
that murder.
born-
That's the whole issue.
Once the baby is born, that newborn
Well, if
requires
it's provably
requires their
self-defense,
mother
it wouldn't be
to-
murder, but
once the baby's born, that's a newborn, right? And you can't just leave a baby and walk away. They're not just like, now they're on their own, like now it's a person separate from itself and the mother has nothing to do with it. The child still requires support from people around them. So what is the fundamental difference if you're saying it's her body, her choice, 5 seconds before birth, but then 5 seconds after birth, suddenly, you know, how can you kill that
Consciousness.
child? Like, that's
I
terrible.
told
The
It
baby's
may be
conscious.
consciousness. Do
The
you
baby's
remember
conscious.
anything from that moment? Like when you...
Wait, do you think that a child doesn't have consciousness right before they're born?
Like once it takes its first breath and it's into the world,
No,
and
so
it's like,
scientifically, a child actually has consciousness very, very early in pregnancy. In
I-
fact,
you're
the
talking
heart
about
starts
the
beating
indication of
before
it being
a
able
mother
to
even knows
feel
she's
pain.
pregnant. All of it. Like, they have brain waves very early in pregnancy. In fact, mothers don't even know they're pregnant while their baby's heart starts beating. And then not shortly after do they have brain waves. So that's why I'm telling you, viability is very early, because you can have a baby born premature
Here.
and they can survive outside the womb.
do you have a final thought, or otherwise I'm going to switch gears?
no.